Have you ever had a moment when your whole life felt like it was falling apart? And you thought, why me? Maybe it was the day you lost your job, the moment someone you loved walked away, or that phone call that changed everything in an instant. It feels random, cruel, like the universe just spun a wheel and it landed on your name. But here's the twist. What if none of it was random? What if every heartbreak, every setback, every wrong turn was actually happening for you, not to you? Stay with me, because by the end of this story, you might never look at pain the same way again. In Buddhism, there's no such thing as pure coincidence. Every single event, big or small, is part of a much larger pattern, a kind of cosmic choreography we can't always see in the moment. They call it the Dharma, the truth, the order, the way things unfold exactly when they're meant to. And pain, it's not punishment. It's a teacher in disguise. It's that one mentor who never sugarcoats, who pushes you to your limits because they know you can be more. I remember once, a Buddhist monk told me a story about a handful of salt. He said, if you drop that salt in a glass of water, the water becomes bitter, but drop it in a lake and you won't even taste it. The salt is life's pain. The glass is your mind when it's small and closed off. But when your heart and perspective expand, the same pain doesn't consume you the same way. And here's the part most of us resist. Without disruption, there's no transformation. The seed has to break apart before it can grow. The caterpillar has to struggle inside its cocoon to make its wings strong enough to fly. Think about the hardest moment you've lived through. If you're honest, didn't it shape you into someone wiser, stronger, maybe even more compassionate? It's almost as if life knew exactly what it was doing, even when you didn't. So maybe the question isn't, why is this happening to me? Maybe the real question is, what is this trying to teach me? In a moment, I'm going to share how to see these unwanted moments in real time, not years later, so you can turn pain into power before it consumes you. And once you understand that, you might actually start trusting life, even when it doesn't go your way. Part 1. The Power of Expanding Perspective. I want to share something with you. It's a story I first heard from a Buddhist teacher, and it's been echoing in my mind ever since. He asked me, if you put a handful of salt into a glass of water, what happens? I could picture it instantly, the water turning cloudy, the first sip so bitter it makes you wince. Even if you were thirsty, you'd probably push it away. Then he said, now take that same handful of salt and throw it into a lake. And I imagined it, a vast lake, stretching so far you can't see the other side. The salt falls in, disappears. You take a sip from the lake, cool, fresh, and there's no bitterness at all. The teacher looked at me and said, the salt is the pain in your life. The water is your heart. If your heart is small, even a little pain can make your whole world taste bitter. But if your heart is wide, open, the same pain barely changes the taste of your life. That hit me hard, because for years, I lived like that glass of water. Small, tight, overfilled with bitterness. When something hurt me, a breakup, a betrayal, a dream falling apart, I let it take over everything. I couldn't think about anything else. Couldn't see the good that was still there. Maybe you've been there too. One bad moment can feel like the whole picture. One harsh word can echo louder than 100 kind ones. One disappointment can block out all the light. The truth is, life won't always take away the salt. Pain still comes, loss still happens. But we can change the size of our container. I think of my friend Michael. He lost his business during the pandemic. Overnight, everything he'd worked for was gone. The bills piled up. He felt like a failure. That was the glass, tight, bitter, undrinkable. But then, he started helping at a community kitchen. At first, just to keep himself busy. Then, something shifted. He met people with struggles he'd never imagined. Families living in their cars, veterans with no home to go to. He listened to their stories. He saw their courage. And slowly, his heart began to stretch. His situation didn't magically fix itself. He was still out of work for months, but the bitterness stopped swallowing him whole. He had become the lake. That's the power of expanding your perspective. The salt doesn't disappear, but it becomes one small part of a much bigger body of water. Buddhist wisdom says that suffering is often amplified, not because it's too great, but because our world is too small. We live inside narrow walls, our own fears, our own disappointments, our own expectations. And in that cramped space, pain takes up everything. When you widen your heart through compassion, curiosity, gratitude, suddenly there's room for the salt to dissolve. You start to see that pain is not the whole truth of your life. So, how do you become the lake? Sometimes it's as simple as stepping outside your own story for a moment. Listen to someone else's guy. Offer kindness with no expectation of return. Notice what's still beautiful: the sky after rain, the laughter of a child, the smell of coffee in the morning. These moments are not small. They're what stretch the edges of your container. They're what turn the glass into a lake. Next time you feel bitterness rising, stop. Take a breath. Ask yourself, is my heart a glass right now or a lake? Because you can't always choose how much salt life gives you, but you can choose how wide you let your waters become. And the wider they are, the less the salt can change the taste of your life. Part 2. No chaos, no transformation. I want to tell you a truth that most of us spend our whole lives running from. Without chaos, there is no transformation. We like comfort. We build these little safe zones for ourselves: steady jobs, predictable routines, relationships we can count on, and we convince ourselves, if I can just keep things calm, I'll be happy. But life doesn't work that way. Think about a seed. If you hold it in your hand, it's just a hard little thing, perfectly safe, untouched, and completely lifeless. But when you bury it in the dark, in the cold soil, something miraculous happens. The shell cracks, the seed breaks apart. From the outside, it looks like destruction, but that breaking is the only way new life can begin. I used to hate chaos. I thought it meant I was failing. When I lost my first job, I remember lying in bed, staring at the ceiling, feeling like the floor had dropped out from under me. I had no plan, no direction, just panic. That was my buried seed moment, only I didn't know it yet. Maybe you've had one too. A breakup that shattered your heart. An illness that made you question everything. A sudden change that ripped away the ground you thought was solid. It's human to see those moments as the enemy. But here's what I've learned. Chaos is not the opposite of growth. Chaos is the soil growth needs. Buddhist wisdom teaches that nothing truly transforms without impermanence. If everything stayed the same, there would be no room for awakening. The shell of the seed has to break. The caterpillar's form has to dissolve before it becomes a butterfly. Look at nature, it's everywhere. A forest fire can destroy acres. And yet, the ash nourishes the ground, so new plants can grow stronger than before. Storms strip the trees of weak branches, making them more resilient. And humans? We're no different. Some of my greatest leaps forward came after moments I thought would break me. When I moved to a new city alone, I was terrified. For weeks, I had no friends, no routine, just empty space. But in that space, I discovered sides of myself I didn't know existed. I learned to listen, to take risks, to stand on my own. That would never have happened in my old comfort zone. I think about my friend Sarah. For years, she stayed in a job she hated because it felt safe. Then her company went under. She cried for days. But 6 months later, she was running her own small business, doing work that lit her up every morning. She told me, if I hadn't been pushed, I never would have jumped. That's what chaos does. It pushes you out when you'd rather stay in. It rips away the familiar, so you have no choice but to grow. Of course, in the middle of it, it doesn't feel noble. It feels terrifying. You feel lost. But when you stop fighting it, when you let yourself break open, you find out you were never just a seed. You were always a tree in the making. So if you're in chaos right now, if your life feels like it's been turned upside down, maybe, just maybe, this isn't the end. Maybe it's the soil being prepared for your roots to grow deeper. Ask yourself, what might be trying to grow from this? It's not about romanticizing hardship. Pain is real, loss is real, but so is transformation, and often the two come hand in hand. You don't have to rush it. Seeds don't sprout overnight, but trust the process. Trust that one day you'll look back and see that the breaking wasn't the end, it was the beginning. Because without chaos, there's no transformation. And without transformation, we never become who we're meant to be. Part 3. The Power of Resistance. I want to tell you a story I'll never forget. One morning, a man found a butterfly's cocoon. He saw a small hole appear, and he sat there for hours, watching the butterfly struggle to push its body through. At some point, the butterfly seemed stuck. It wasn't moving anymore. The man, wanting to help, took a pair of scissors and gently cut the rest of the cocoon open. The butterfly emerged easily, but its body was swollen and its wings were small and weak. It never flew. What the man didn't realize was this: the struggle to get out of the cocoon is what pushes fluid from the butterfly's body into its wings, making them strong enough to fly. By removing the struggle, he removed its strength. When I first heard that story, it hit me like a truth I'd always known but never named. Resistance is not the enemy. Resistance is the training ground. I learned this in my own life the hard way. When I was younger, I wanted everything to be easy. If a job was too hard, I'd quit. If a relationship got tough, I'd walk away. I thought comfort was the goal. But every time I avoided struggle, I stayed small. My wings never grew. Maybe you felt this too. You hit a wall, and the temptation is to look for a shortcut, to ask someone to rescue you, to find the scissors. But here's the thing, those moments where you push against the wall, where you fight and sweat and strain, those are the exact moments your wings are being shaped. Buddhist wisdom teaches us that suffering is not something to fear, but something to understand. Just like the butterfly's cocoon, life's obstacles are part of the design. Without resistance, we remain grounded. With it, we learn to fly. I think about a time I almost gave up. It was my first year starting a business. I had no clients, bills stacking up, and self-doubt eating me alive. Every day felt like I was pushing against an invisible wall. There were nights I lay awake wondering, what's the point? Maybe I'm just not cut out for this. But I kept going, not because I felt strong, but because there was no other choice. And slowly, something changed. My skills sharpened. My confidence grew. I learned how to navigate storms instead of hiding from them. Looking back now, that year was my cocoon. Without it, I would never have been able to handle the opportunities that came later. Maybe you're in your cocoon right now. It feels tight, dark, uncomfortable. You wish someone would cut you out and set you free. But what if the very act of breaking through is what's giving you the strength to soar later? Think of a tree growing in a windy place. The constant resistance forces its roots to grow deeper, making it able to stand through bigger storms. In nature, resistance builds resilience. In life, it's the same. The heartbreak that taught you how to love without losing yourself. The rejection that forced you to find your own worth. The loss that opened your heart to what really matters. I'm not saying we should seek out pain for its own sake, but when it finds us, and it will, we can meet it with a different lens. Instead of asking, "Why me?" we can ask, "What is this strengthening in me?" The butterfly doesn't know in the middle of the struggle that it's building the muscles to fly. You might not know it now either. But one day, you'll look back and see that every push, every tear, every moment you thought you couldn't was the very thing that gave you your wings. So if you're in the struggle right now, keep going. The cocoon isn't a prison, it's your training ground. And when you break through, you won't just survive, you'll fly. Part 4. The Invisible Law. I want to share something that has taken me years to truly understand, something I wish I could have told my younger self. Life has its own rhythm. It doesn't move faster just because you're in a hurry. It doesn't hold on to people or things just because you want them to stay. There's an invisible law that quietly shapes everything around us. In Buddhist wisdom, it's called Dharma, the natural order, the way things are meant to unfold. For a long time, I fought this law. When someone walked out of my life, I clung to them. When a dream seemed stuck, I pushed harder, losing sleep, getting frustrated, trying to force doors open. I believed that if I worked hard enough, prayed hard enough, or wanted it badly enough, I could bend life to my will. But life doesn't work that way. I remember a relationship I once had. I thought it was the one. We laughed, we dreamed, we planned. And then without warning, it started to fall apart. No big fight, no betrayal, just a slow drifting. I tried to fix it. I begged. I compromised. I became someone I barely recognized, all in the hope of keeping what was slipping away. In the end, it ended anyway. At the time, I saw it as failure. But looking back now, I see it for what it was. Dharma. That relationship had taken me as far as it could in my growth. It had given me lessons, love, and pain, all the ingredients that would shape the next chapter of my life. But its time was up. Here's the truth most of us resist. If something leaves your life, it's not because life is cruel, it's because it no longer serves your path. If something is delayed, it's not because you're unworthy, it's because the moment isn't ripe yet. Think about a seed. You can water it every day. You can sit there, staring at the soil, willing it to sprout faster. But no matter how much you want it, it will only break through when it's ready. Too soon, and it won't survive. Too late, and it will wither. Your life is the same. But here's the hard part. We don't always get to see the bigger picture in the moment. When you're in the middle of waiting or watching something slip away, it feels like loss. What you can't see is that life is actually arranging the pieces, protecting you from what isn't meant for you, preparing you for what is. I've seen this play out over and over. The job I didn't get led me to a path I never would have considered. The person who left made space for someone who truly saw me. The delay that frustrated me turned out to be the perfect timing for an opportunity I couldn't have handled earlier. So how do you live with this invisible law? You let go of the need to control the when and the how. You show up, you do your part, and then you trust. Trust that if it's leaving, you no longer need it. Trust that if it's delayed, it's not ready, or you're not ready. Trust that your path is unfolding exactly as it should, even if it doesn't match your plan. It's not about giving up. It's about aligning with life instead of wrestling it. When you stop fighting the current, you realize it's carrying you exactly where you need to be. And maybe right now, you're holding on to something that's already halfway out the door. Or you're staring at a dream that just won't take off. Before you tighten your grip, before you exhaust yourself trying to force it, ask yourself, what if this is Dharma? What if letting go or waiting is the most powerful move I can make right now? Life's rhythm is wiser than our impatience. And the moment we trust it is the moment we finally breathe. Part 5. The Illusion of Control. There's a truth that took me a long time to swallow. It's not that I didn't hear it before I did, but I kept fighting it over and over. We all like to believe we're in control. We make our plans, we set our goals, we decide where we're going, when we'll get there, and exactly how it's going to happen. We treat life like a chessboard where we're the player moving every piece. But here's the quiet reality. Life is more like a river. And no matter how tightly you grip the paddle, you can't control the entire current. I learned this the hard way. Years ago, I had a vision for my life that was so clear I could see every detail. The career, the relationship, the house, the timeline, everything. And I worked for it like my life depended on it. Every decision I made, every move, was calculated to get me there. But life had other plans. The career I thought was my forever, it collapsed overnight when the company shut down. The relationship I counted on, it ended with a conversation I didn't see coming. Even the city I thought I'd grow old in, I had to leave within months because of circumstances I couldn't control. At first, I saw it as failure. I thought maybe I hadn't tried hard enough, or maybe I'd made the wrong choices. But slowly, painfully, I began to see the truth. It wasn't failure. It was life doing what life does, moving in its own rhythm, in its own way. In Taoist philosophy, there's a term called Wu Wei. It doesn't mean do nothing. It means act in harmony with the natural flow of things. It's the art of letting go of the illusion that you're steering the entire ship and learning to move with the current instead of against it. Let me give you a picture. Imagine you're holding a rope tied to a wild horse. You can dig your heels in, strain with all your strength, and try to pull it where you think it should go. But the more you pull, the more it resists. Now imagine letting go, not in defeat, but in trust, allowing it to find its path. Sometimes it leads you somewhere far better than you imagined. That's what letting go of control feels like. It's not about giving up on your dreams. It's not about sitting back and doing nothing. It's about showing up fully, giving your best, and then releasing your grip on the outcome. When you stop forcing life to match the picture in your head, something beautiful happens. You start noticing the doors that were invisible before. You start seeing opportunities you never planned for, but that fit you perfectly. You stop wasting energy fighting the current and start using it to carry you forward. Think about it. How many times in your life has something gone wrong, only to turn out better than your original plan? How many times did losing something lead to finding something greater? But here's the catch. We only see that clearly in hindsight. When you're in the middle of it, when the plan is falling apart, it feels like chaos. That's when the temptation to tighten your grip is strongest. That's also when letting go matters most. So maybe today, You're trying to control something that refuses to bend to your will. Maybe it's a relationship, a career path, a dream you've carried for years. Ask yourself, am I moving with the river, or am I exhausting myself trying to swim upstream? Sometimes the bravest, most powerful thing you can do is loosen your grip. Not because you don't care, but because you care enough to let life guide you. I'm not saying it's easy. It's not. We've been taught that control equals security, and letting go feels like risk. But the deeper truth? The control we think we have is often an illusion. And the security we're chasing comes not from holding on, but from trusting the flow. You're not losing power when you stop forcing things. You're gaining freedom. Freedom to live in harmony with life instead of in constant battle against it. Freedom to receive what's meant for you, even if it arrives in ways you didn't expect. And maybe one day, when you look back, you'll realize the moment you let go was the moment everything began to fall into place. Part 6. Finding peace in uncertainty. There's a moment in life when you realize, no matter how much you plan, life doesn't hand you a script. It's not a movie you get to direct. It's more like improv. You never quite know what the next scene will be. And that can be terrifying. I know, because I used to live with this constant knot in my stomach. Always wondering, what if something goes wrong? What if I'm not ready? What if the future doesn't look like I imagined? I thought the answer was to plan harder, prepare more, control every variable I could. But all that did was make me more anxious. Because the truth is, uncertainty isn't something you can eliminate. It's part of the deal of being alive. One of the most freeing lessons I've ever learned comes from Buddhist philosophy. Everything changes. Nothing is permanent. We call it impermanence anicca. It sounds simple, but when you really let it sink in, it can change the way you breathe. See, I used to see change as the enemy. If something was good, I wanted it to stay exactly the same. If something was bad, I wanted it to disappear overnight. But life doesn't follow that rule book. Good seasons shift, bad seasons shift. The only constant is that nothing stays exactly as it is. And when you stop fighting that truth, something beautiful happens. You start living fully in the moment you have, instead of clinging to the one you wish would last forever, or fearing the one you think is coming. Let me tell you a story. A friend of mine lost his job during a time when the economy was collapsing. He was terrified, rent due, bills piling up, and no idea what to do next. But instead of shutting down, he took one small step each day. He learned a new skill, reached out to old contacts, and within months, he landed a role that not only paid more, but brought him joy in a way his old job never did. If you ask him today, he'll say losing that job was one of the best things that ever happened to him. And yet, in the moment, it felt like the end. That's the paradox of uncertainty. It often feels like danger, but it's also the birthplace of possibility. The problem is we're wired to fear the unknown. Our brains see uncertainty as a threat, so they spin out worst-case scenarios. But here's the question. What if, instead of asking, what if it all goes wrong, you asked, what if it all goes right? When you start shifting that lens, uncertainty becomes less of a monster in the dark and more like a door you haven't opened yet. Now, I'm not saying you should ignore reality or pretend everything will always be perfect. Life is still life. Storms still come. Loss still hurts. But acceptance, real acceptance, doesn't mean you like everything that happens. It means you stop wasting your energy fighting what is. There's a phrase in Zen, let go, or be dragged. When we resist change, we suffer twice. Once from the thing itself, and again from our refusal to accept it. So how do you find peace in uncertainty? You stop living in the what if of tomorrow, and you anchor yourself in the what is of today. You notice the breath you're taking right now, the sunlight on your skin, the sound of laughter in the other room. You make the moment you're in worth living because it's the only one you actually have. And here's the thing, when you accept impermanence, you also start appreciating the good more deeply. You stop rushing through moments because you know they won't last forever. A conversation with a friend, a quiet cup of coffee, even the challenges, they all become part of the rich texture of your life. I'm not going to tell you uncertainty gets easier overnight. It doesn't, but over time you can train your mind to see it not as a threat, but as an opening. The end of one chapter and the quiet beginning of another you haven't read yet. And maybe, just maybe, that's where the real adventure lives. Part 7. Every struggle is part of the journey to awakening. I want to tell you something I wish someone had told me years ago. The hard moments, the heartbreaks, the nights you lie awake, wondering if you'll make it. They're not detours. They are the road. I used to think awakening meant reaching some peaceful mountaintop where nothing hurt anymore, where the storms of life would finally pass and I could just breathe. But life kept throwing me curveballs. People I loved left. Plans fell apart. Health scares, financial struggles, they came one after another. And I thought, what am I doing wrong? If I was really growing, shouldn't things get easier? But that's when I learned something that changed everything. In Buddhism, pain is not the enemy. It's the teacher. Think about it. Every time you faced something hard, really hard, didn't it change you? Didn't it reveal something about who you are, what you value, and what you're capable of? I remember a time I lost someone I loved deeply. The grief was so heavy, it felt like I was carrying a stone in my chest everywhere I went. For months, I fought it, tried to keep busy, to push it down. But grief has a way of sitting with you until you're ready to listen. And when I finally stopped running from it, I saw that my pain wasn't just about loss. It was about love. It was proof that I had cared so deeply, that this person had mattered enough to leave a mark on my soul. That's when I understood. Pain and love are two sides of the same coin. You can't have one without opening yourself to the other. Buddhism teaches that everything, joy, sorrow, gain, loss, is part of the same great unfolding. We call it the path. And the path doesn't skip the hard chapters. Here's the thing most people don't tell you. Your struggles are shaping you in ways comfort never could. They're stretching your compassion, sharpening your wisdom, and softening your ego. They're breaking open the walls you didn't even know you built around your heart. It's like polishing a stone. At first, it's rough, uneven. But with friction with time, it becomes something smooth, beautiful, strong. So if you're in a hard season right now, I'm not going to tell you to just stay positive. You don't have to pretend it's easy. It's okay to feel the weight of it. But remember, this moment is not wasted. It's doing something in you. It's teaching you something you couldn't learn any other way. There's a question I often ask myself when life gets heavy. What if this is exactly the lesson I came here to learn? When I hold my challenges that way, they stop feeling like punishments and start feeling like invitations. Because awakening isn't a single moment of enlightenment that erases all pain. It's the slow, steady realization that every experience, yes, even the painful ones, are part of the awakening itself. Each moment of struggle is a doorway, A chance to step closer to who you really are. I think of it like climbing a mountain. When you're in the middle of the steepest part, sweating, gasping, wondering why you ever started, you can't see the view yet. But every step, even the ones that hurt, is carrying you higher. And when you finally look back, you see the path, and you realize those rough, rocky stretches were the ones that made you strong enough to reach the top. So, the next time you're in a storm, try this. Instead of asking, why me? Ask, what is this here to teach me? And if the answer doesn't come right away, that's okay. Sometimes the lesson only reveals itself after the clouds clear. But trust this, no pain is wasted. No struggle is meaningless. Every step, no matter how heavy, is part of your journey to awakening. And maybe, one day, you'll look back on the very thing that almost broke you and realize it was the thing that opened your heart the widest. Part 8. The power of asking the right question. I want to let you in on a little secret that completely changed the way I deal with life's challenges. It's not a magic trick. It's not something you can buy. It's just asking a different question. For years, every time something went wrong, my first thought was, why is this happening to me? Why the job loss? Why the heartbreak? Why the illness? And I'll be honest, those why questions never gave me peace. If anything, they made me feel smaller, powerless, like life was just a series of punishments I didn't understand. Then one day, during one of the lowest points of my life, a teacher said to me, if you want a better answer, you need to ask a better question. At first, I didn't get it, but slowly, I began to see. The moment I changed the question from, why is this happening to me, to, what can I learn from this? Everything shifted. It was like switching on a light in a dark room. Suddenly, I wasn't just a victim of my circumstances. I was a student. And life, every messy, painful, complicated moment of it, was my classroom. Think about it. If you're only asking, why me? Your brain goes searching for reasons to prove you're unlucky, unworthy, or doomed. But if you ask, what is this here to teach me? Your mind starts looking for wisdom, for growth, for possibility. I remember when my business failed years ago. It wasn't just a financial hit, it felt like a blow to my identity. I kept replaying the mistakes, the what-ifs, the unfair breaks. But the moment I asked, what is this trying to teach me? I saw that I had been building something I didn't even love, just because I thought I should. That failure pushed me to realign my life with my true values. Without it, I might have stayed trapped in a version of success that didn't even make me happy. In Buddhism, there's a teaching about the second arrow. The first arrow is the pain life gives us, the loss, the change, the disappointment. The second arrow is the suffering we create by the way we think about it. When we keep asking, why me? We're essentially shooting ourselves with that second arrow over and over. But when we ask, what is this here to change in me? We're choosing transformation over self-pity. It's not about ignoring the pain. It's about using it. Letting it open doors inside us we didn't even know were there. So the next time something in your life feels heavy, pause. Instead of spiraling into, why now? Why me? Try asking, what is this moment here to teach me? What truth is this trying to show me? What part of me is this asking to grow? And don't rush the answer. Sometimes it comes in a whisper. Sometimes it comes months, even years later. But it will come. Life is always speaking to us. The question is, are we asking the kind of questions that help us hear it? I'll leave you with this thought. Maybe the real measure of wisdom isn't how many answers we have, but how deeply we're willing to sit with the right questions. Part 9. Trusting the process. Let me take you back to a time in my life when I was convinced everything was falling apart. You've probably had a moment like that too, the kind where the future feels like a giant question mark, and all you can see is the mess right in front of you. For me, it was the day I got the call saying the project I had poured my heart into for 2 years was being shut down. Just like that. Gone. I remember sitting there, my coffee turning cold, thinking, in that moment, there was no silver lining. Just frustration, fear, and that heavy, sinking feeling in my chest that whispered, "You've lost." But here's the thing. Life has a way of showing us that our so-called failures are often just detours. Looking back now, I can see it so clearly. If that project had succeeded, I would have stayed stuck in a role that drained my energy and dimmed my spirit. Its ending forced me to step into something far better, something I didn't even know I was capable of at the time. Maybe you've experienced this too. The breakup you thought would break you, but ended up opening the door to the love you truly deserved. The job you didn't get that pushed you toward a career you actually love. The moment you thought you were being abandoned, but in reality, you were being redirected. Buddhist teachings talk about the unseen currents of life, how what looks like chaos on the surface can actually be the river guiding you exactly where you need to go. But the problem is, when we're in the middle of it, we can't see the whole river. We only see the bend right in front of us. That's why trust matters. Not blind faith, but the kind of trust that grows from experience. When you look back and realize, oh, that failure was actually a gift in disguise. When you remember how many times life has surprised you with something better than you imagined. So, the next time you're in a season of uncertainty, try asking yourself, what if this is not the end, but the beginning? What if this is life making space for something I can't see yet? It doesn't mean the pain disappears overnight, but it does mean you stop wrestling with every twist in the road. And instead, you start walking with a quiet confidence, knowing the road has taken you somewhere good before, and it can do it again. When I look back now, those moments I once labeled failures have become my greatest blessings. They were the teachers that shaped me, the storms that cleared the way, the endings that birthed beginnings. And I've learned this. When you start trusting the process, you stop needing to control every detail. You let life surprise you. And more often than not, it will. Conclusion. Trusting the flow. You know, life has a way of teaching us this quiet truth. Every event, every twist, every turn has its own purpose and its own timing. When you start to see that, something inside you softens. You stop asking, why me? And start asking, what is this here to teach me? You stop carrying resentment like a heavy stone, and you start using your struggles as stepping stones. Because peace doesn't come from erasing every storm from your life. It comes from knowing how to sail through them, from trusting the river, even when you can't see around the bend. Buddhism has a saying, when the student is ready, the teacher appears. Sometimes the teacher is a joyful moment. Sometimes it's heartbreak, loss, or failure. But every single one is shaping you, refining you, completing you in ways you might not see yet. And maybe that's the real gift. To live in harmony with life's flow instead of fighting it. To meet each experience, good or bad, with the knowing that it's part of something bigger, something wiser. So here's my question for you. If you looked at your current challenge as a guide instead of an enemy, what might it be trying to show you? And if someone you love is in the middle of their own storm, maybe share this with them. Because sometimes, all we need is a gentle reminder. We're exactly where we're meant to be, even if we can't see why just yet.